it in yet?
As I'm a quadriplegic.
God. All right, guys. So my friends Shaun and Deepal here are current med students, and we were thinking, a lot of people are so focused on perfectionism, on being the best hardcore, brightest med students they can be to match into whatever specialty they want to match into, and that we don't talk about our failures and the funny stories and the ridiculous things that happen in the hospital enough. We were chatting a bit, and these guys have some amazing stories, and I'll share some of mine as well. So first off, do you guys want to give a little bit of intros for those who don't know you?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Deepal. I go to What is the nature of this intro? Yeah, I'm Deepal. I go to UNLV. I'm a third year med student here. I don't know. Hobbies include playing video games, chess, working with Kevin.
He's also a research genius. He, out of all three of us, Deepal has the most experience NIH and crushing it with the research
some background. I did engineering in undergrad, so it helps a lot.
Yeah, and then Shaun has been on this channel before.
And I'm Shaun. I'm a third year medical student here in Las Vegas as well. Hobbies include video making and, doing some fun.
He's got an awesome YouTube
tricks.
channel that you guys can check out up here.
Somewhere up there.
So when it comes to rotations, you have surgical specialties, non-surgical specialties. I think that generally speaking, non-surgical specialties are a little bit easier to learn, to pick up, to just get into the groove and not make a fool out of yourself. Whereas the OR, there are a lot more rules, and you're like, whoa, this is a completely foreign environment.
Very orderly, everybody has a job.
It's actually kind of like walking through a minefield. Yeah. Because it's so impressively easy to make mistakes when you're in surgery.
Yeah. First thing you hear is, don't touch this, don't touch that. You have to do this, you have to do that.
And when you're a med student and you walk into the OR, they treat you like you're a child who is going to do something wrong.
Yeah. And the reason being is sterile technique.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's valid. It's
Yeah, the number one thing that we care about, obviously, is, patient is exposed to the environment, they're open, infection risk, right? So everything that can be sterile needs to be sterile. And a stupid med student is really good at making things unsterile.
Yeah.
I know when I was a stupid med student, I definitely had times where I broke sterile technique.
Yeah, so
you touch the light and you're like, oh, damn it. That's the most common one.
Yeah. There was actually this time a few weeks ago where I was on a surgery rotation, and this wasn't my first surgery rotation. This was probably my fourth surgery rotation. So you'd think I'd be okay at this by now. And I see the scrub tech scrubbing in. So the scrub tech's the master of the sterile field. They're the first ones to scrub in, usually the last one to scrub out. And they're the ones that are really watching you like a hawk to make sure nothing gets desterilized. So I see him scrub in, and I was trying to be helpful and kind of come up behind him and close his gown, and then kind of tie him up in the back. And then there's this part where they have to kind of rip away the ties around the waist, and they hand you kind of one of the cards that you have to grab, and they spin around, grab the tie themselves.
Because the card makes it such that someone who is not sterile can essentially hold that other part, and then it tugs off. Yeah. So then they can grab the sterile part.
Basically, he hands me the card and turns around, and I don't know why, instead of ripping the card away so that he would have his tie, he was holding his tie in his hand, and I just lost all my brain cells and just spaced out and just took my hand and reached for the tie that he was holding with his own hand and just grabbed it. And then he just looks at me, he's like, what? And I go, oh. And then I just let it go. And then he just looks at me kind of almost in disbelief, because usually when these things happen, they happen so fast you don't even realize it. This was the opposite. It happened so slow that it was impressive that I managed to mess that up.
Typically these things happen automatically.
Yeah.
Every day, every case, it's just fluid. And the med student just comes in and throws a wrench into the system.
And I just completely brain farted and just grabbed onto his gown. And he was in disbelief. He was in shock that I
So you essentially, you gave the card to him and then you grabbed his?
I was holding the card still, and my only job was to rip the card away so he would have both of his ties that were still sterile. But instead, while I was holding the card, I took my other hand and reached for his tie.
So now this poor scrub tech had to go scrub back in.
Scrub out. He had to go rewash, come back in, and re-scrub. Yeah.
One of the big things about being sterile is that only this part of you is sterile. So actually my first case, I vividly remember it because I dropped my hands just moving around the patient, and I was like, you're out. surgeon kicked me out of the OR actually because I was desterilized at that point. Case was nearly over. She said you can just leave. So first case ever, just kicked out of the
Kicked
OR
out.
for being desterilized.
Crazy.
I'm surprised they let you scrub in on your first case. The first several cases, I was just like watching.
I was just suctioning smoke, and even I with that.
I know that there have been multiple times when I broke sterile field. It's been several years, so I don't remember the exact ones. But I remember when I first started, it was so hard not to scratch your face or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And I think one time I went like this or something to try to get something, and
Yep.
then broke
Exactly,
sterile field
exactly.
because
Yeah.
your face is not sterile. It's essentially here to here.
Yeah.
And so if I'm getting my shoulder or my upper arm, now this part is now dirty.
Yeah. I've had to ask people to like scratch my face.
Yeah, that's a really pro tip.
When you're in surgery for like 6 hours
Yeah.
and you get an itch, like it's painful.
Part of it too is like mindfulness, and then you just, I don't know if you've tried to just watch it because it dissipates. The one that I did have to ask for help was repositioning glasses.
Yeah,
Or it's like
yeah.
if things are falling down, like hey, my loops are like, they're heavy, so it's coming down. Like hey, can you pull this up? Like the thing on the back is loosening.
Like tighten it in the back.
Yeah. So that one I've done many times.
Yeah, we had a person, a guy in our class that was actually wearing, like just the plastic like eye protection, and like he was like looking down, and they just fell off the front of his face, and he just caught them with his gloves, and he just like stood there like this, and like just looked up, and like the surgeon's like, but at least he caught them. Like I would say it would be better to catch
They
them.
didn't drop it into the field.
Yeah, instead of dropping onto the
Oh
field.
my
Yeah, he caught
God.
them, and at least he's safe at that point.
You know what's worse than breaking sterile field?
What?
Well, I guess it is actually breaking sterile field in a sense. Needle sticks.
Oh no.
I don't have
So-
experience with this.
I have an experience with a needle stick. I was in a plastics case as a med student, and I'm trying to apply to plastics. And I'm not gonna say exactly who, but let's just say some higher ranking attendings were in that case. And it was like it was just one attending. But then we had like another resident and a PA. So it was 4 people. And I think it was a breast reduction or something. There was like a lot of suturing around the breast, a lot of suturing. And this patient had really thick, tough skin. And the surgeon was rushing because they were falling behind. And I remember being in a very awkward position. So I'm like suturing this way, sideways, not optimal ergonomics at all. And then the attending surgeon is here doing their thing, and then the 2 on the other side. And you don't want to speak up and say, hey, I don't feel comfortable, this is not optimal, whatever. So you just go at it. And because of the weird positioning, I slipped, or rather maybe it like tore through the skin. I forget what happened. And I stuck my finger.
Oh god.
And I felt I just felt like this is the one time you want to impress the attending, the higher ranking people at your program. I was like, I do not, this is so bad. So I had to go out, and then they just handled the rest of the case on their own because I think we were already finishing up or
It's almost
mostly
like
done.
you were the med student, so you put yourself in that uncomfortable position, and then you got needle stuck as a result.
What do you mean putting myself in that position?
Like you almost like contorted yourself.
because you felt that you couldn't
because
speak
I
up.
want to, because I couldn't speak up. As a resident, I would have
Yeah.
definitely said something.
Yeah, exactly.
As a med student, I felt like I couldn't. In hindsight, once I learned more and once knowing what I know now, that was terrible. I mean, just a terrible situation that no one should have been put in. Patient got tested, everything was fine.
You're still alive.
But I felt so bad, and I used to keep this document of my like big fuck ups. This went in there, and I was like, what can I learn from the situation so that I never get needle stuck again? Because I don't want to, get a bloodborne pathogen. But that reminds me of another time. Nothing bad happened, but there was a patient who had a gluteal abscess.
Ooh.
HIV positive, we knew that going in. And then to close, they had me and the intern. The intern was a
Oh my
radiology
God.
intern who wanted to do ortho and then couldn't match, so he went to radiology. So he wanted to reapply next year, so he wanted surgery experience. The 2 residents that were in the room, one of them was like, hey, you guys close. And then the other one was like, yo, dude, this guy's HIV positive. These guys don't know what they're doing. They're gonna stick each other.
Yeah.
And then the other resident says, hey, what do you guys think? I'm not gonna be like, oh no, I want to stop, because again, you're a med student, you're trying to match into the specialty.
Trying to impress them, yeah.
So that was the most stressful moment of closing for me, because I was looking at this guy, he was to my right, peripheral vision on him, and I'm like going really carefully with my own stuff to be like, no one's getting stuck here today, we're gonna go nice and easy. And then, hey guys, hurry up, like how much longer? And then you're like, nope, we're not gonna get stuck
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
They can.
I was sweating bullets, man, that was tough. That was tough.
Speaking of gluteal abscesses, we had this rectal abscess, right? And sometimes the residents will just want to mess with you because you're the med student. And like, we're gonna go in, we have to like drain this abscess. It's huge. It's super tense and firm. And they're like, hey, Shaun, like, have you ever used one of these bovies before? And I was like, yeah, I've used one. They're like, oh yeah, you wanna go ahead and, make a cut and, start draining this thing out? The moment I made even the smallest cut, just started squirting. And they literally knew that was gonna happen, which is why they didn't want to make the initial incision, because,
Please tell me you were wearing eye protection.
I was gowned, I had like shoe covers, and it just like flew and just hit my gown and was just dripping down. It smelled disgusting.
It is surprising how much pus comes out of those abscesses.
Yeah.
I was in a case, and we took like 5 liters of pus out of the abdominal cavity.
Oh my gosh.
But I was like suctioning pus and blood out of the thing, and we do it with, there's like tubing and we call it a yank hour, right? Like, and I let go of the suction and it flips up and hits the senior surgeon. And she just looks at me and she goes, is there blood and pus on my face? And I'm like, yeah. And then she just takes off her gown, goes out and washes up. And I'm like, oh my God. But she was a good sport about it. And obviously not the first time it happened to her, but oh my God, I like de-sterilized with blood and pus.
Yeah.
So one thing that becomes very clear in the operating room is the hierarchy, right? Yeah. So there was that book, I think it was Outliers maybe, or maybe it was a different book about airline pilots and how they really reduced the error rate and overall fatality and crashes by having the co-pilot feeling comfortable speaking up to the pilot. I guess in your situations, it wasn't as much about you guys speaking up, but I know in my situation, I think if I felt comfortable speaking up, then everyone would have been safer. Like with that HIV positive patient and like 2 people who were very new to this, I was like, I don't want to be here, but I also don't want to speak up. I don't want to get a negative evaluation or look weak in their eyes.
Yeah.
And then also the suturing thing, same thing. Have you guys ever felt like you couldn't speak up and you got into a bad situation?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in positions where, I don't feel comfortable suturing a site, or I've been like holding a retractor for a couple hours and, my shoulder's giving out and I'm tired. But you can't, like, I want to get good evaluations, right? Like I can't, like, I don't want to switch out the surgeons on one side and the PAs on the other side.
But that's not so unsafe, right? That's more just like comfort.
Yeah, I suppose it's comfort. I don't know about like the safety aspect of it.
I don't think so far I've ever been put in a position where the patient's safety was at risk. I feel like usually the attending, if they're having me do something, it's because if I do mess up, it can be used as a learning experience and it usually doesn't result in the patient being like situations that I could think about would be like if an anesthesiologist is like, do you want to intubate? And if you've never done it before, you might not necessarily just want to go for it. You might want to actually have them show you and guide you through it. But some med students.
But then also your program probably has like the dummy station that they teach you in the 3rd year where you practice on that first.
Actually, to that point, I do want to do anesthesia, and so I've been trying to get like intubation practice and things like that. I've had a Mac blade taken from my hands because I was taking too long. And the anesthesiologist was just getting irritated with how long I was taking to intubate. And he swatted my hand away. He's like, no, like it has to be done quickly. So things like that, like, you're aware of like your own inexperience in that time, but it's a learning opportunity, right?
What about personal safety rather than patient safety?
Like I have one where like, I have a story where like the blame was put on me, even though it wasn't really my fault because I was doing what I was told. And then no one spoke up for me to like defend me. Basically, everyone just stayed quiet, even though I was just doing what I was being told to do. So basically, we had this like patient that was like an ICU level patient, and we brought them back to the OR to trach them, right? Because they had been intubated for however long, and so the tube was already in, right? They're already intubated, and basically we had to kind of slowly pull the tube back out. But like super slowly, and I don't remember exactly why. I think they were just trying to figure out exactly where to make the incision for the trach. And so I was just doing what the attending was telling me. He was just basically like, he's like, keep going. He's like, keep pulling. He's like, keep pulling back, keep pulling back. And all of a sudden, like I'm still doing it, and I stopped when he told me to stop. And then the anesthesiologist got really upset out of nowhere, and like started like kind of like moaning and groaning. And then like kind of the attending surgeon just kind of stopped, and then basically the anesthesiologist was like, great, now we have to re-intubate. basically, I guess I had pulled the tube too far out, but I was going based off what the attending was saying. I kept going until he told me to stop, and he said keep going. He said
Yeah, I
keep
feel like
going.
there's a lot of situations like that in medicine where
Well, basically,
you
like,
will get blamed even though you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
yeah, and so they have to like re-intubate and everything, and then the anesthesiologist is now holding the tube, and I'm like, oh, like, do you want me to hold that for you? And they were like, no, you lose privileges. And the attending didn't look at me. The two fellows that were on didn't speak up or say anything, even though like it wasn't me. Like I was just doing what I was told. But you know what I mean? Like when you have like
I feel
two
like that happens a lot.
attendings, yeah, they don't want to clash with each other. Just easier to like, yeah. So that's a real, you know, when you talk about hierarchy, that stuff like that really does happen.
For sure.
Yeah, and you kind of just have to bite your cheek and just kind of
Roll with
suck
the
it up.
punches. You just gotta roll with the punches.
And I was pretty aggravated.
Because then if you like try to defend yourself, you just make everything way worse.
Exactly. And I wanted to speak up. I wanted to be like,
They always tell you to speak up is the thing.
yeah,
And
it's tough.
Yeah, you can never do it in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, what else do you guys have from the OR?
Yeah, so it's really hard like being funny in the OR. I do a lot of like nervous humor, and you know, as a med student, it's hard to contribute meaningfully. And I guess like when I'm nervous, the ways I like meaningfully contribute is like bad humor. So we had like a patient who's just absolutely crashing, emergent case, perforated something in the gut, and it's anesthesiologist and CRNA on one side of the arm, and me and the senior trauma fellow on the other side, both trying to put A lines. Anesthesiologist and CRNA can't do it on their side. They're running to get another radial art line kit, and me and the senior are on one side, and we're still trying to do it. And it's been like 3 minutes, and we can't do it. The guy has bad veins, you know, just bad all around. He's crashing as we speak. And I just like, you know, it's silent. Everybody's like trying to work. And I just go to my senior trauma fellow, and I'm like, is it a bad time to ask, is it in yet? She just looks at me and she goes, just hold his hand straight. This is not the right time. And then another time I was
So no one else laughs.
no one laughed. It's still dead quiet. Still dead quiet. I don't think you should make a is it in yet joke when you're trying to get an A line in somebody's
I think there's like a level of reading the room here where it was like really serious.
Yeah.
You probably just don't want to say anything.
And then another time, I think this is what got me a professionalism ding on my evaluation.
Oh gosh.
We were in like a pretty prolonged case, and as a med student, you know, you're mostly retracting or suctioning smoke, if that. I don't know. People were just talking about like the roles that they have in the OR. You know, interns are barely like cutting for the first time and things like that. And I'm just like, yeah, you know, as med students, like, you know, we're happy to like be useful. Like, you know, we retract, we suction smoke. And I'm like, you know, it's super fun to suction smoke sometimes. It's pretty satisfying. I love a good suck sometimes. And I'm just like, oh shit.
That's so bad.
And I was with the attending. And he looks at me, and I think the attending, like, he knows it's like, attendings are like beyond that level of like professionalism, and they think it's okay to laugh. The senior ended up putting a line in my eval that went something to the effect of, student is quick to integrate himself into the team, but sometimes doesn't maintain professionalism. And I was like, God dang it. Like, so humor sometimes isn't like your job in the operating room.
Yeah, I think a lot of us use humor as like a coping mechanism when things get quiet, awkward, tense. But the OR is one of those places where sometimes it's okay for it to be quiet and tense.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it'd be better for that to happen than
This is like serious work, yeah.
Yeah. Another place that, you know, you might want to try making conversation is when you're like having super prolonged interactions with patients, whether you're doing like a bedside procedure and, you know, you don't just want to be quietly doing said procedure with the patient just lying there, and then you might be in there for like 10 minutes, right? So you guys know what a butt flap is, right? Like, you know, we had this patient that had sacral like abscesses.
Yeah.
She had flaps done. So she had a bunch of staples, right? It was all over. So the residents asked me to go and remove her staples. That had been a few days. So I'm in there. We have her like turned over, and we're like pulling these staples out. It's been like 10 minutes. A lot of staples in
like,
there.
A lot, yeah.
So I'm just trying to make conversation with this patient, and I'm like, "What do you do for work?" And she's like, "I don't work." And I go, "Why not?" And she's like, "Because I'm a quadriplegic."
Oh, God.
And her caretaker was literally sitting in the room too. And they had mentioned that she takes care of her, but in my head I was like, "Oh yeah, that's her, such a good friend."
Hey man, she could have been a transcriber.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't want to assume she didn't work, but it was a very valuable lesson in you really should read the notes for patients before you walk in the room. I was pretty new to the rotation, so I didn't know the patient list or anything. I just went into the room and just was like, "Oh yeah, I'll take this random patient staples out for you." Yep. Asked a quadriplegic what she does for work, and then asked why not when she said she doesn't. She was a good sport about it though. She was a good sport. Yeah, I think she thought it was funny. I got a lot of crap about it from the other med student and the resident after the fact, but.
So what are some lessons that we've learned?
Don't make jokes in the OR, especially when everyone looks stressed.
When you're trying to keep the patient from dying, it's not the right time to make a nervous joke.
Read the room.
You should always read up on a patient before you go into the room so you don't ask them why they don't work when they can't.
Yeah, I think that's important. Just reading up on your patients is important in general.
Yes.
I think when you're an early med student, you're very particular about that. And then eventually you kind of just lose sight of that, get kind of just repetitive. For me, it's respecting the OR, right? There's always rules and procedures and things, and you kind of lose sight of that. It's still very easy to desterilize yourself in the 4th week of a rotation.
And others.
And others. Collateral damage.
Yeah.
It doesn't really get a ton easier.
No, it doesn't.
A lot of it becomes automatic.
Yeah.
Being in the OR and not contaminating anyone, including yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it becomes pretty
What
automatic.
I've also learned is the less you worry about
that's
desterilizing the field or someone, the less likely you are to do it. Because I think if you're hyper aware, then you're more likely to mess up. I hesitated, for example, when I was trying to help that scrub tech scrub in. If I had just been natural, I had done it the way I'd been doing it for weeks, it would have been fine. But I don't know why I hesitated and then
Part of it's
messed
just
up.
repetition. You see it a lot. You know to stand at the next to the patient like this and
Don't
not
drop
put
your hands
down.
Observation is huge too, right?
Yeah.
All these things are repetitive motions, right? Nobody's doing the same thing differently time to time, right? So if you're not scrubbed in for a case and you're seeing that, twirling that the scrub tech is doing at the beginning of every case, watch that, right? Learn from that procedure and don't mess it up when you do it yourself.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that's a wrap. Thank you all so much for watching. If you haven't already, check out Shaun's channel and let us know what you think of this new format. Much love, my friends, and I'll see you guys in the next one.